Just
Come to me,
thinking good times.
all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest.
You try to jump over the fire at night.
God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble.
But sometimes,
Therefore we will not fear. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not let them be afraid. I should pray with me. O God who gave us birth, you are ever more ready to hear than we are to pray. You know our needs before we ask. Show us this afternoon your grace, that as we face the mystery of death, we may see the light of eternity. Speak to us once more your solemn message of life and of death. Help us to live as those who are prepared to die, and when our days here are ended, enable us to die as those who go forth to live, so that living or dying, our life may be in Jesus Christ, our risen Lord. Amen. I want to read a couple of scriptures. First from Psalms, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. From the New Testament, from Paul's second letter to the church in Corinth, 4th chapter and the beginning of the 5th. So we aren't depressed, but even if our bodies are breaking down on the outside, the person that we are on the inside is being renewed every day. Our temporary minor problems are producing an eternal stockpile of glory for us that is beyond all comparison. Finally, the 14th chapter of John's Gospel. Don't be troubled. Trust in God, trust also in me. My Father's house has room to spare. If that weren't the case, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? When I go to prepare a place for you, I will return and take you to be with me, so that where I am, you will be also. You know the way to the place I'm going. Thomas asked, Lord, we don't know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus answered, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. We gather on sacred ground. We talked about sacred ground in worship yesterday. We were talking about Moses at the burning bush, and that was sacred ground. And we talked about how sacred ground is wherever we experience the presence of God, and we are experiencing the presence of God in this place. It's sanctified by the lives that are represented by those stones that we see. So we are honored to be on sacred ground today. And we gather to remember, to give thanks, and to celebrate the life of Bob Bearce. Because of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ, we can do all three of those things. Now, the remembering we could probably do, but the giving thanks and the celebrating can be hard were it not for the life, death, and the resurrection of Christ, which makes those things possible. Because of what he has done on our behalf, we can come to times of loss, and times when we are walking through the valley of the shadow of death, and we can still find reason to be hopeful and to celebrate. We gather also to be with family and friends, supporting each other as we go through this time. I just wanted to share just a few thoughts about Bob. I got to Hebron in Shepherdsville in 2005, and sometime shortly after that, met Bob and Laura, and I found immediately that Bob was a wonderfully encouraging guy. And also we were just talking with Leslie, and said also a guy with no end of personality, but a wonderfully encouraging guy. And among his gifts, he had this great gift of curiosity. He's one of those folks who always had a question. It wasn't just a random question, it was a thoughtful question. At Hebron, the back of the sanctuary, there's a space where it's easier for the wheelchairs to be, so he would usually have that space. And I don't know about y'all's churches, but the back of the church is prime real estate for us. So he was in a sought-after position. But it also meant that after the worship, when give the benediction and go to the back, he was one of the first to get to me after the service. And he always would come often with a question. And it was always based on whatever we talked about. So that we knew he was with me through the service, because he'd come and he'd ask a question like, is God really like that? The way that you talked about in the worship this morning. Or what do you think God would think of what's going on in the world right now? Thoughtful questions like this. His faith was strong enough that it did not waver when he faced hard things. His faith was a bedrock thing with him. So in December, I think it was actually the last Sunday in December, he was in worship. And on his way out, being a pastor, you make conversation. So I said, Bob, how are you doing today? And he paused and he said, and I think knowing there was more going on right then than I was aware of, he said, I don't think I'm doing all that well. There was a deep strength in him that allowed him to face circumstances and still cling to the truth that whatever was going on in him, God's promises were for him. Two things I knew about Bob for certain. He loved God. He loved serving his country. I know that for a number of reasons, but one of the obvious ones was that his hats never left any doubt about it. His hat was either one that had a big message about God, or had a big message about his service and the way he valued that. So a few weeks ago, I walked into the hospital there in Bardstown, and he was in the bed, and none of us are at our best in a hospital gown, but Bob was there, and we had conversation, and Laura was there, and left, and didn't really think about it, but felt like something was off. And the next day I went back, same exact situation, and not much had changed, except that Laura had brought a hat from home for him. And I said, Bob, you seem so much more yourself and so much more comfortable today with that hat than you did yesterday. Bob was fiercely independent. With the wheelchair, you have to say that Bob was always fiercely independent. I never knew him before he was in the wheelchair. One of the first Sundays when I got to Hebron, again, he's at the back of the sanctuary, so there's a ramp that goes down from the back of the sanctuary. That's not the story. He went out the door and he went down the ramp, and so I'm watching. And then we got this sidewalk that goes down to the parking lot. It's got a slope to it. And so, I'm just kind of watching. I've never seen a wheelchair go so fast. He got out there, and so this became a thing. I would watch this happen, but every week I try to get people to watch because it's so quick down that, and just an amazing since rather than being in a wheelchair, it was kind of like it was a motorcycle or something, just the way that he would ride that thing. One other wheelchair story that gets to the fierceness of the independence. So this again was probably the same day I asked him how he was doing, and him saying he didn't feel too good, and knowing he really didn't feel very well because all this was going on inside of him. And so he's down in his car, and one of the women told me this afterwards. She said she walked past and she asked, do you need some help getting things in the car? And he was gentle but firm. No, I don't need any help. And then she said she watched as he somehow got the wheelchair folded up, flung into the car, and got himself into the car all on his own. If he could do it by himself, he was going to do it by himself. Bob did love his country, rightfully proud of his service, and I have seen the way that Laura and the folks who were with her decorated the activities building at the church for the gathering that's going to happen after this, and the flags and the military memorabilia and so on. He would have loved that. He would love the atmosphere for that, and he would love this space right here, right now. Finally, I want to mention Bob and Laura, because that's how I came to think of them. I didn't really think of them independent. I thought of Bob and Laura. I think of those names together. They would be together at church. They would be together on Wednesday evenings. They participated, and typically, again, I just didn't think of one without the other. And they have been through a lot over the years. And they've gone through that lot together. And I want to thank Laura again now for the gift of allowing me to be the one who did their wedding February 8th. They had faithfully, for years, basically lived out the wedding vows that they spoke on February 8th. I'd never been a part of a wedding in a hospital setting before, and it was amazing to see the way the staff over at Leger in Bardstown responded to that, got behind it, were so into it. It spoke to who Bob and Laura are. So I want to say this. I think the hospital staff are probably nice people. And I think that they're probably helpful people. I think they're kind of oriented that direction. But this was beyond nice and helpful, what they did. There were balloons that they got to decorate the room to kind of change the scene so there wasn't just medical equipment surrounding them. There was a bouquet of flowers in a jar of water so that Laura would have a bouquet. There was cake that they got ready so that afterwards there would be cake for them to share. And when it came time for the service, all those folks came in and gathered around, and they were smiling because it was a beautiful moment. But there was tears in their eyes, again, because it was a beautiful moment. For Bob, the suffering is past. The suffering he has had to endure, especially this last little bit, is past. And the struggles he's faced are over. But the inspiration of his life, fully lived with enthusiasm and a deep and abiding faith, live on as his legacy. So, this day, what a joy to imagine Bob walking, into the embrace of our loving Savior and receiving that welcome. And then maybe stepping back and saying, Jesus, I have a few questions. Thanks be to God. Amen. I invite you to pray with me. O God, before whom generations rise and pass away, we praise you this day for all your servants, who having lived this life in faith now live eternally with you. Especially we thank you for your servant Bob, whose baptism is now complete in death. We praise you for the gift of his life, for all in him that was good and kind and faithful, for the grace that you gave him, kindled inside of him the love of your name, and enabled him to serve you faithfully. We thank you that for him death is past, pain ended, and that he has now entered the joy that you have prepared for Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Before we do final military honors, I'd like to take a few moments. Pastor mentioned this being a hallowed ground. We look around at all these stones, and these are all our service members. And each one of these stones out there represents a person's life, and there's a story behind every one. As we stood out here earlier today waiting on this service, we met a man out here who put flowers on his wife's grave. He was a colonel in the Army, retired. We asked him, where did you serve? He said, I was in Vietnam as a lieutenant. Bob was in Vietnam. And someone said he was only there for a short time. The thing that makes this so incredible around here is it doesn't matter whether you were a cook, a machine gunner, a colonel, or a private. We all serve the country. We took the same oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. What you see standing here in front of you are two young Marines. Those colored ribbons on their uniform is a story of where they've been. And the Marines behind them are Marines that served all over the country in various wars, various operations. There's too many stories to be told. But I'd like to read to you just a brief reading about Bob when he began his life as a Marine. It's with tremendous sadness that we recognize the passing of Brother Marine Bob Bearce. We post now to honor this Marine for service to our beloved Corps. Bob has acquitted himself well during his tenure with the U.S. Marine Corps. Our detachment shares a common bond with him. For those who have never served, earning the title Marine bears special significance. For becoming a Marine is a life-altering experience, one that transforms a person into the maturity of adulthood. In recruit training, we learned how to cope with hardships that helped us to endure unthinkable situations under fire. As a Marine veteran, Bob certainly experienced many of these hardships. He has earned a special place in heaven by virtue of his honorable service. Moreover, he belonged to a rather elite fraternity, which automatically made him a brother in arms with every Marine, past, present, and future. For this reason, we as brothers and sisters are here to pay our respects for his honorable and faithful service to the United States Marine Corps, which we all hold so dearly. There's a poem which epitomizes Bob's service. I'd like to read it to you at this time. And it's simply entitled, Once a Marine, Always a Marine. I was that which others did not want to be. I went where others feared to go and did what others failed to do. I asked nothing from those who gave nothing, and reluctantly accepted the thought of eternal loneliness should I fail. I have seen the face of terror and felt the stinging cold of fear, and I have enjoyed the sweet taste of a moment's love. I have cried, pained, and hoped, but most of all, I have lived times others would say were best forgotten. At least today, I'm able to say I'm proud of what I was, a United States Marine. Faithful service to the Marine Corps and to our country is recognized by our members and immortalized by the third stanza of the Marine hymn, which states that if the Army and the Navy ever look on heaven's scene, they will find the streets are guarded by a United States Marine. Take comfort in knowing that your Marine has taken leave of this life to fulfill the ranks of heaven's detachment. Take comfort. We take comfort, as the pastor said, in knowing that he's no longer in a wheelchair, and that one day we all, those of us who choose to believe in Jesus, will be with him also. It is the joy of salvation. Detail. Right? Face. Forward.
At this time, we will do military honors. I'll ask that everybody stand. At this time, the tap, you place your right hand across your heart. If you're a veteran or retiree, please salute.
Detail. Left hand hut. Toward arms. Half left face. Ready. Aim. Fire. 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 Half right face. Present arms.
Everyone, please be seated.
proclamation. United States Marine Corps League Detachment 749. Present these cases representing duty, honor, and country. Or respectfully to our fallen Marine brother, friend, Bob Bearce. These are officers of firemen. I'd like to read to you the first back of this star that's a flag that's been retired. The Marines will pass out these stars to you. This star is from an American flag, which can no longer be flown because it is faded and worn. It's like so many of us veterans who can no longer serve. We gave our all to serve this country, and we only ask that we not be forgotten. Your veterans, never be forgotten. God bless you.
Excuse me. Sir. 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 Can I have one, please? Yes, sir. Thank you. God bless you.
Picture you setting on fireworks.
That's nothing to you.
You probably had enough hugs. Your mom's brother. I can tell by looking at you. I just wanted to hug you and tell you I'm praying for you. I was going to say that I'm praying for you guys, and I can imagine your pain.
JJ's probably already got him up there flying.
He broke his arm. You got to hug on this side. Hug on this side.
He likes your fur. Now he gets a smile. How did you feel with that? I like jumping up to you.
Well, still great. It's still here.
You got dog hair all over.
He'll be missed. He was a kick in the pants.
That's a good way to describe him.
Then I started dating a girl here in Little. She met us. Bob. You never did that again.
That's funny.
Bob was kicking the pants. He's in a good place, and that place he's kicking the pants. He's a fun guy. Always laughs.
Thank you.
And I'd have to go down
You okay standing here? You want to sit down? A couple days.
How you doing, old buddy?
Good job.
Huh? I'm still kicking. I ain't going nowhere. You heard about my little son,
No, Shelly was smart. She wrote
and he had it, it was a birth certificate. See, I've got
Let me put this arm down.
Bring her hair. Not the size of me.
Made it. Can I have a kiss?
Some kisses.
I'm gonna take them. I'm gonna take them.
Oh, you're getting a kiss.
Yes.
How crazy is that? I know.
My sister-in-law just got married.
Hey, why is the dress hiked up over your rear end?
Everybody keeps picking me up.
Can I have the baby? Baby.
I gotta go.
The can's empty, don't worry.
Are y'all running with Stacy? Marcus. Okay. Mr. Joe, I know your video.